Buffering. We are live. Yay. Yay, yay, yay. Thank you once again, Shawnette, for being our esteemed guest. Definitely you have so much wisdom, so much to offer. You were our first guest for our first podcast, The New Norm 2020, the new norm in you, sorry. And you gave us so much wisdom. So definitely thank you so much for everything that you have to offer, aka Old Soul.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Yes. And I want to turn it over to Ty before I get into anything what we're going to talk about.
Okay, so for everyone that's starting to chime in now, again, thank you for watching. Hey, Liz Carter. Hey, girl, how you doing? Um, sorry, I'm having an off day today, so if everyone could just bear with me. We want to be able to continue what we do. So if you could also make it to the YouTube channel, Mothers Unfiltered, and make sure you subscribe, like, comment, um, and then share our information because we enjoy what we do. We love you guys listening. And Shawnette, thank you again. Kia, always thank you.
Yes, yes, yes. Love you guys both. I just wanted to
Thank
jump
you.
right in to talk before we actually get into the podcast to give a couple of shout outs. I want to talk about Pride Month because a lot of things are going on. We already know 2020 has been a hell of a year so far, but just to let you know, June is Pride Month, and Pride Month commemorates the Stonewall riots, which occurred at the end of June, actually June 28th, 1969. Um, and it took place in Greenwich, New York, in Manhattan, the Lower East Side. That's my stomping grounds, Lower East Side. I'm a Harlem girl, but I went to school out there. Okay, side note. But I wanted to give a shout out also in remembrance to Marsha Johnson. He was one of the advocates that definitely was fighting for liberation for the LGBTQ community. When they say Black Lives Matter, I just want to put out there that all Black Lives Matter. Doesn't matter what's going on, what your religious beliefs are, what your sexual orientation is. We love you, we love you, we love you. So I definitely want to put that out there. And also in remembrance to Pulse Nights Club. Actually, I'm in Orlando, if nobody knows or you're not too sure. And Pulse Night Club, I want to say, is maybe about 20-ish minutes away from me. I've actually been there myself. And I knew somebody that passed away. 49 people actually died. I will not include the perp who did this terrible act of hate. But with that being said, 49 beautiful souls passed away. So I definitely want to say, our condolences to the families. We're still here in the struggle together. It's another issue that definitely has to be tackled as well. Okay, but just putting that to the side for a moment, I wanted to talk about healing transitioning. A lot of times, Shawnette, we're going through this whole thing and you're hearing about protests. I think yesterday, another person, actually Friday, an individual shot running from the police. He was sleeping in the parking lot of Wendy's. And now you turn on the TV and Wendy's is in flames. And your kids are watching. While we're having this dialogue and while everybody is going back and forth, I can actually say, I can't speak for you two, but I can say sometimes I will forget my audience because you're so wrapped up in your conversation. And for me, just to put it out there, I have a 19-year-old, a 17-year-old. She'll be 18. I gotta say that she'll be 18 shortly. And then, and then I have a 3-year-old. So right now, okay, talking about older teenagers, teens, we can get to that in a second. But those little children, the babies, are so impressionable. And when I'm having this dialogue and conversation, I remember shortly my daughter, the 3-year-old, running around, bad cop, good cop, bad cop, it's good cop, good cop. And then she's going back and forth. And it's like, what do we say to our children, especially at that precious age group when they're so impressionable? What do we say to them when they're just like, they hear so many different things all over the place, especially if you have somebody like me, and I do apologize. I shouldn't be saying it, but kind of we get wrapped up in our emotions when we're talking. And the kids hear it. What do we say to them?
We say to them that we are feeling our emotions. We explain to them what those emotions are. We share with them what is age appropriate, what's going on. We let them know what's going on. Imagine that um, back in the day when perhaps the generation who had German Shepherds unleashed upon them,
Mm.
and some of this was televised, and the generation who had fire hoses unleashed upon them by law enforcement. And imagine what the children, or what the children of Dr. Martin Luther King, or what the children of Malcolm X, or what the children of people who have been slain, right? Or people who had been witnesses, as our own children are now witnessing what is going on. So, what do we say? We owe it to them to tell them what's going on, to not try and shelter from them the reality of what's happening. At the same time, let's be careful that it is age appropriate. And let's also be mindful that what we are watching is traumatic.
Right.
We are seeing a person's life taken. Many people have never seen death in their own lives, let alone to actually see a person's life lost right before your very eyes is trauma. And so, how a person responds to that trauma could differ depending upon the person. But I think it's important to let the children know that some response is normal,
Right.
right? And
Right.
so, if you're yelling and screaming at the TV, right, or at what's going on, then your children are witnessing it. Help them to understand what's mommy or daddy upset about. Why are you crying, mom or dad? Why did you just grab me and hug me after watching the people marching on the TV? And whatever age they are, they'll be able to communicate with you what they've seen. If your child sees a scary movie and maybe they're 3 or 4 years old, they have an ability to communicate with you what they're scared about, what they're feeling, and you have a way to comfort them in that. And so, likewise, this is a scary movie for a lot of kids, regardless of what age they are. And they still need that comfort. They still need that conversation. So I say, have real talk with them.
I think I definitely piggyback that. And I love that. Age appropriate is definitely needed, and also knowing your child's temperament, because you could be in a house with three different kids, and every child, including the adults in the house, have a different temperament. So you may have one child that, and Shawnette, please correct me if I'm wrong, but you may have one child that is more sensitive versus the older child or middle child. So even making sure that you understand how they're going to receive that information. I always think about what we say and what they hear. So I think we have to also be very, very careful about how we articulate um, those feelings and what
Mm-hmm.
we're seeing. And also, on top of the fact that when we're having an actual discussion, that we also need to listen to what the kids are saying, because as adults, we do a lot of talking. I run my mouth all day. This is why we can do what we do. I don't stop running my mouth, but I forget to listen and hear people. And we tend to do that a lot with the kids.
That's good, Ty, and I agree with you. It is similar to having the talk. We talked about in our first podcast about having the talk regarding racial injustice, but also with regard to having the sex talk with
Mm,
kids. It's similar to that because if a 4-year-old would ask a question regarding sex, you wouldn't discuss it to them in the same way that you might a 15-year-old who had a question.
right.
But yet, you should, at the time that they're born, help them to understand their bodies
Yes.
and to teach them as age appropriate, right?
Right.
Different things about sex at different points in their lives. And so it's a continuous conversation. And as you said, you're listening to them, listening to what their concerns are, what their questions are, what things it is that's on their minds. Because a lot of times you'll find that you might be way off. Your
Right.
child is asking one thing and you're ready to explain something altogether different. So it is
Right.
important to listen to them, to hear where they're coming from, to hear what they are concerned about and address that.
Mm-hmm. And so now, definitely what you two both mentioned is what's age appropriate. And of course, once again, you talk to the little 3-year-old way differently than when you would talk to an 18 or 17 or 19-year-old. Um, let's tackle that for a second, the older youth, because definitely I think all of us, or a majority of people, would have a way to you know change their verbiage when they talk to a baby,
Right.
and turn the channel and those things and put some, cartoons or whatever on. But when you talk to those older kids who definitely have feedback for you, and they may let you know something, it's interesting. The more I talk to my adult son, he has something to come right back. And I'm like, well, wait, who are you talking to? Not even saying that he's doing it. Yeah, but not even saying that he's doing it as a comeback, but not that. This is my opinion. This is how I feel about this. So I
Right.
wanted to mention this to you real quick, in regards to just, okay, so just recently it's been developing. I don't know if you guys have been following it, but there have been a rash. Now it's up to 6 or 8, if I'm not mistaken. I do apologize if I haven't gotten the number right, of lynchings in the state of California, South Carolina, Ohio, Alabama. I'm not too sure. I'm missing a state, but basically in those states that I did mention, it's like 2 over here, 2 over here. In one case, the woman her skin was ripped off of her. And my mother makes a comment. She says, well, because my kids like to exercise and go out running, make sure that they're not, going out running anymore. But how do you talk to the older kids when they're already, you're stopping their lives again? Here goes the corona. It shuts everything down. Now, okay, I know how to run. You say stay in the community. I stay in the community. Now you tell me I can't do nothing anymore because I'm supposed to be afraid watching every little corridor, because somebody's might hurt me or take my life. And, how do you explain that to that older, youth who's like, my whole life is stopping because of this madness. Like, I'm good. Nothing's going to happen to me. Because you're, as a parent, you're scared. Like, oh, but they had this optimism. Like, I'm good. What do you say to them when they're combating and saying, I want to go out?
I think that the kids are a little bit, when it comes to facing danger, I think the kids have a little bit more um, courage than us adults. We are afraid, as you said, we want to protect them. We're afraid that they're going to be hurt. We don't want them to climb. They're going to fall. We don't want them to run. We don't want them to flip. We don't want them to jump. We don't want them to go outside. Somebody's going to kidnap you. Somebody's going to, something's going to happen. The reality is that we want to teach them about being able to assess risk. We want to teach them about being able to protect themselves. And we want to teach them about living. And so if we ourselves are living in fear, then that is exactly what we're going to teach our children, or at least project onto them.
Right.
And that right there can be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're able to talk to our kids and talk about the real risks that exist and talk about the reality of what's going on, whether or not it's people being kidnapped, people being sex trafficked, people being unjustly killed by law
Mhm.
enforcement, what people being lynched, whatever it is, we always want to make sure if your children are trick or treating, we want to make sure they're careful about the candy that
Sure.
they
Right.
are receiving. And so we always make sure that we discuss with them the risk, again, age appropriately,
Mm-hmm.
and make sure that we communicate that with them. Allow your children to discuss what they think a risk is, if
Mhm.
any. Sometimes they might be concerned about something that we've not considered. And then
Oh,
once you identify what those concerns are or what those risks are, then have conversations about how perhaps to mitigate those risks. What can we do to decrease the chances of something like this happening? Maybe traveling in groups, or maybe having an emergency escape plan in the event that something happens. And so these are ways that we can address what's really going on with our children of all ages.
It is. I mean, that really is so important. And again, it goes back to listening. Like you said, asking them about what they see as a risk. And because I come from an educator's background, you think about the brain development of youth, and when they're at a certain stage in life, when it comes to brain development, they're not always fully there
Mhm.
to know how to negotiate, what long-term risk looks like versus short-term satisfaction.
Mhm.
So again, sitting down and knowing your child, really knowing, because you have a lot of people that really don't know their kids. You have kids, but you don't know your kids. And
Yeah, that's true.
it's unfortunate, but it's the truth.
Mhm.
Again, knowing your kids and how they're going to receive that information and how you engage them in
Mhm.
that conversation, speaking to them or at them versus asking questions and having a conversation.
But I got a little question on that because and I don't know if it's our generation well, it probably is our generation is raised a little bit differently from this generation, because definitely I know growing up when I was that age, my mother and I had a very open dialogue. Not that I wanted to talk to her, she wanted to talk to me, especially when you're in a teen, you're kind of like, I'm doing my own thing or whatever. But it's kind of like I was doing it. She already taught me about it. I kind of like had that kind of grown mentality, and maybe because I was kind of in the streets or whatever. But with that being said, the kids are sheltered in a way. Here they grew up in a suburban type of way, and they don't always want to hear that what you're talking about, or they're not always able to even project their feelings to you. A lot of times, especially the school that my kids go to, my daughter actually had a person commit suicide, a actual friend. And it's like, wait, everybody knew she was okay. She's coming to school, she got the videos, the Snapchat, I've seen her, and everything looks normal, but she isn't expressing. You as a parent, you're coming to her like, how you feel today? I'm good.
Right.
Everything's okay. Yeah. And no, just to kind of get you out of the way. And there's some other things going on. Is there any type of techniques, Shawnette, or type of ways when you do have that teen like, I'm okay, can you get out of my room, mom, or can you leave me alone, or whatever that type of conversation is?
Yeah, one of the things that's important for children, we talked about this before, with regard to educating our kids. Sometimes we don't have the knowledge to give to our kids.
So
Sometimes, when it comes to communicating and expressing how we feel, some parents are not very clear on how to do that. A lot of times they may have grown up in an environment where it wasn't okay to express sadness. Right? What are you crying for? You don't need to be crying. Get over that, right? And so
right.
maybe this individual has grown up to think that crying is not cool. And so now when their child is crying, maybe in some way, maybe not even verbalizing, maybe even just a look, right? You have that look of disdain, like, that's not okay. And the child learns that, okay, I better not cry. I better suppress this feeling. But if you're able to demonstrate for your child what it looks like when you're upset, how to be upset and not lose your temper, how to be sad and not become depressed to a point where you're not able to function, how to be afraid and do it anyway, right? Or whatever it is. But it's really all about modeling to your child what that
Mm.
emotion looks like. Model into your child what it looks like. Have you ever had a parent, as a child, the child is intuitive and says, "What's wrong, mommy?"
Mm-hmm.
And what's the magic answer?
Nothing.
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 Thank you. Nothing. That's the magic answer. But what if you were to say to your child, I'm really disappointed. I tried for a job today and I didn't get it.
Mm.
Okay. And then your child says, man, mommy, why didn't you get it? Well, they said they were going to go with somebody else. And I just thought, I really wanted to have that. And this is what now you're modeling. This is what disappointment, this is the way that disappointment is expressed. This is the way you can articulate being disappointed. You
Right.
can say that. And you can say, man, I really think I was the best candidate. I think they made a wrong choice.
Mm-hmm.
I'm mad that they didn't choose me. And this is what that looks like. And
Mhm.
then this is what I do about it. This is how I cope with that feeling. Well, you know what? Let's just dance and maybe that'll help me feel better. Okay, so we dance when we're feeling upset. Okay,
Right.
that's, and I mean, whatever that is, but that is a part of modeling it. We have to show our children what it looks like. So
We,
that, I
we
think
don't
that's the
even know
start.
sometimes.
And you know what? And I think it also not just the showing what the children showing the children what it looks like, but we have to also be able to recognize it. I think that a lot of parents in general may not just recognize what they're doing. They kind of get wrapped up in it. You know? Did you
Um,
go ahead?
Sorry, I just want to bring up from Liz Carter. It's also different for our kids because this generation never disconnects. They'll say they are okay and chaos is brewing right under their fingers. It's different parenting in the age of social media.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny you mentioned that, Liz. It's funny you mentioned that, Liz, because I was going to say to you, Shawnette, or ask you, I think that a number one thing that parents we combat, we have a war, is social media. So, you know, you can model, you can show, you can talk, you can do all these things, but and not even that, even if you put the parental controls on and they're able to, you know, you're blocking certain things, you have the kids and the friends at school showing them how to unblock. You had them already showing you, hey, look, let me show you what just happened over here. And this is not just okay about these protests and these things that's going on. This is in a generalized situation. I'll
Right.
never forget when my daughter was in middle school, or maybe just going into ninth grade, if I'm not mistaken. She comes to me talking about anal sex. I'm like, anal sex? Well, what in the world? Well, who even said something? She was like, oh, I found out today. I went to, so basically they're using laptops as a way of teaching now. And she goes and she leaves to go to the bathroom. Well, while she leaves to go to the bathroom, some young guy gets on the computer and types it in, anal beads. And she comes back into her thing from the bathroom, logs on, and what is this going on? Now, one is an issue because how the school didn't have a blocker for that.
You'd be
But it's like,
surprised.
yeah, but with that being said, it's like you as a parent, you're fighting all types of wars because you come home, you're teaching your child. I never taught my child about anything anal. You know what I'm saying? That's not age appropriate. But now I have to have this conversation with her because she's like, oh yeah, and what do anal beads do? And blah blah blah. And I'm like, you know, with an egg on my face. So what tools do you have or suggestions do you have for parents who have to kind of like Liz mentioned, you know, they don't disconnect social media, somebody's going to show them, someone's going to tell them about it, one way or the other.
I
I
say
think
you
I'm
figure it out
sorry.
to
Okay.
connect with
Mhm.
your kids. I'm sorry. Go
What
ahead.
did you say? What did you say?
I said you figure out a way to connect with your kids.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think we have done a disservice to our kids by giving them that much access to technology because now they have access to everything. Age appropriate, not age appropriate, facts, not fact, misinformation, everything. And then like Liz stated, not Liz, I'm sorry, Shanette stated before, so she comes home to you and talks about anal beads and anal sex, but as a parent, you are not well versed or well educated when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to reproductive and or sexual health.
Mm-hmm.
What how do you work that in? Like how do you educate your child when you are not educated enough to educate your child about that, and as a parent may not know where to find this information and resources?
Now, this is the no, this is the challenge that a lot of parents are faced with, but this is what we have to realize. We are in a new age. It is not the day that the only time you see a naked body is if you found a Playboy magazine under somebody's bed. It's not the days where if you happen to catch a VHS tape or late at night, the HBO channel is scrambled and you might could piece together a piece of naked
Late night
body.
specials.
Right, and you trying to see a piece of nudity. It so long ago are those days, and whether or not you give your child access to technology or not, as you've said, it is all around us. And so what we have to do is we have to just Be realistic that it is out there, that they have access, as you said, to it all. And because of that, we have to be, one, willing to have those tough conversations with them, and two, we have to be willing to familiarize ourselves with the things that are unfamiliar to us.
Mm, thank
What
you.
is this new TikTok? Well, guess what? Ask Google, ask
Right.
Alexa, ask Siri, ask somebody, what is this new TikTok? Well, what is this thing? Ask your child when they come home from school, not just how was school today,
Mm,
but was it something this week that really shocked you? Was it something you learned? Is it something one of your friends did that just knocked you off your feet that you never thought somebody would do? I mean, ask some different. How was school today? Fine. Well, what was the worst part of school today?
right.
What
Mm,
was the best part of school
Right.
today? What
mm,
happened? What happened? Was there, ask about what do you and your friends talk about, right?
mm,
Not just like the hovering mom or dad,
Yeah.
but really asking, well, are you and your friends into this kind of music? Do you guys listen to that? Are you aware of this? So that means that you have to, as a parent, become more familiar in the things that's going on in our children's worlds.
yeah.
And Shawnette, can I ask also, with what you just said, do you think it's a good idea to do um like ask questions in real time? So if you're sitting down with your child and you're watching a movie that has a lot of sexually explicit stuff, whatever it is, violence, or you're listening to a song, your child puts a song on the radio,
Mm-hmm.
is it okay to be like, well, what do you think that means? Explain it to me. Or when you seen this on that movie, what would you have done? Or what would your friends have done to kind of find out like where
Hmm.
their head is at? Do you think that's appropriate?
Absolutely, I think it's appropriate. And I think it is a golden opportunity. If you are watching a news segment and someone is cruel to an animal, and perhaps the newscaster says that this person is going to jail, the child might say, well, why are they going to jail? You have an opportunity to explain about what some social norms are with regard to
Right.
handling and treating animals, what some rules and laws are, and what enforcement is like. You
Mm-hmm.
get an opportunity. And likewise, you get to do that with sex. You get to do that. My friend says Bob is cute. Well, who do you think is cute?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what do you think makes somebody cute? Right?
It's funny you mentioned that, because for me personally, especially and with my daughter, my oldest daughter, so she's listening to a song. Let's just take Nicki Minaj or something, and it'll have very explicit lyrics. And I'm like, okay, so when he says this, that, and the third, what does that mean to you? And I've came across two different things when she answers. She'll say, "Oh, I don't know. I just like the beat." We're gonna stop you right there. And I will let her know exactly what it means as tactfully as possible, because of the fact that she is about to be an adult and she's already exposed to a lot of things. But I let her know, and then I let her know, now what do you want to do with that? I don't want for guys to say things to her and not know. And she's just like, "Oh, did you hear what he said?" And thinking that it's cute or something. There's a lot of slang words also that the kids are using, and they call me corny trying to find out what it is, and I might use it in
Yeah.
my own vernacular.
We shouldn't do that.
But I want to know. I want to say this is cap and this and and those type of scenarios, because I want to be able to be engaged. So I stopped them right then and there. I don't want you to walk around looking stupid, because a
Right.
lot of times people could be talking over you and you just have no idea, like, oh, that's what that meant. So if you're going to be able to listen to it, be able to own that knowledge as well. So yes, definitely.
I like that. One of the things that I learned facilitating groups, a girls group will, focus on, is, and because we're talking about healing, this is like the big thing, healing and with the youth. And I learned through those girls groups that our young goddesses, because that's what I call them. I am a goddess, and that's the way I walk in. I take nothing less. And if when you're in a group with me, you are a little goddess in training. So you have to get there. But what I learned is they need healing. I have this exercise where I tell them to write a letter to themselves, explaining the most beautiful things about themselves. And I want nothing superficial. I don't care about your hair, your eye color, the clothes you wear. I want deep. Every single time that activity is done, and I do it it's a 2-hour group. It takes all of that 2 hours for them to even recognize the positive aspects about themselves. And you kind of have to like literally, and it's the wrong choice of words, but break them down to rebuild them back up because they have no self-esteem. And you build them up and send them back into a toxic environment.
Yes.
And that's a struggle too, because it's not only parents that are raising these kids. I don't care whose kid is whose. If I'm around your child, they are my child. I fight for your child the way I would fight for mine, and I love your child the way I would love mine, and I would expect you to love mine as well. But not everyone has the same ethics, morals, spirituality, and I'm not saying I'm perfect. It's just my way. So what do you do when you're dealing with even other people's kids? Outside, trying to lift them up and show them you're valued and you're loved and you deserve better, especially in a time and place where we're at right now.
Great question.
You can always influence people as long as you have access to people. And so if you
say that again,
you can always influence people as long as you have access to people. See? And so if you have access to a child, if you have 5 minutes to speak with a child, to say to a child, you are so polite and kind. You are quite respectful. I enjoyed the way you took care of your little brother. I enjoyed watching you do that. That was so responsible of you. Give them something more than you're cute, you're pretty, like your hair, like your shoes. And then you get a chance to influence them, even if they're not fortunate to have parents who support them in that way. That you remember being able to say as a youth yourself, I had that one teacher that spoke life to me. I had that one neighbor. I remember there was this one lady in the park, or there was this one man at the grocery store. But you have memories of people who were influential in your life, and not necessarily people who lived with you. And so I say continue to be as influential as you can. Help those that you can help. Each one teach one.
It's interesting that you say that, because I always when you ever see, I guess you guys have seen the show or at least heard of it. It's called Yana Fix My Life.
I've heard of it. Yes.
Okay. Well, I watch it sometimes, and what I've always noticed, and just in a generalized situation, is you have generations of traumatic situations happening to our people.
Post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yes. And with that being said, a relationship is a relationship. My only training in reference to counseling is through domestic violence. And what I've learned is, one thing is, in a relationship, you'll have your own baggage. You'll have your, maybe you're selfish, maybe, you're angry, you have fearful, whatever you got going on. And those 5 bags will follow you until you fix yourself. And then you'll meet Tommy or whoever, and he has his set of baggage. Let's just say he got 5 bags. And now you guys will come together. Now you have 10 pieces of luggage that you're, trying to figure it out, and you're trying to make big moves, but you got all this luggage and dead weight, dragging you down. But I say that to say, when it comes to relationships, regardless if it's an intimate relationship or is it just a mother and daughter, a father and son, or whatever the family dynamic is, these issues are still with you. So if you have a mother who has these issues, let's use the same scenario. She has those 5 bags of fear and anger and this and vulnerabilities and all these other things. And now she has 2 beautiful kids. she's transferring all that luggage now to them as well. How can she be right there to show and to model and to do all these things? And she's working all these things. And then does she even know she has these scenarios? And I know you mentioned, Ty, when you work in the group and you're talking to the women, the young ladies, I myself will talk to a group of guys. And, guys kind of like, they're cool, they're chill, we keep things to ourselves. And you can hear the trauma that they go through currently, in the past, maybe something that their mom has said to them, so many issues that they have, and they kind of suppress it. And then now they're growing up and they're living their lives, and they're just carrying this luggage of drama and stress and all these things. And it's, how do we, Shauna, how do you think we break the cycle?
Wait, can I just add, let's do, sorry, Shauna, before you answer, let's add one more layer outside of the post-traumatic stress disorder. Let's add post-slave disorder. Because we've been through that, and that's also luggage that we've carried on.
Our DNA.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Shauna, you did, girl. You got to tell me to be quiet.
No, I'm glad you're adding any amount of layers on, because the reality is that we are people who have multi layers of things that we're dealing with. There are multiple things that affect our lives, and multiple things that create who we are, right? Our experience and the things that we've been exposed to. And so, in order to heal or even begin to address trauma, we have to first acknowledge that we've been injured. We have to first be aware of the fact that we've been injured. Some people are not aware. Some people say, "No, that happened to me. I experienced that, but I'm okay. I'm good. I'm good." Right? And the
Right.
reality, we see through their behavior, through their actions and choices, that maybe they're not good, but they're not aware of it. And so, really, we cannot do anything to solve or resolve an issue if we don't first acknowledge that the issue is there.
Mm. It's so funny that you said that, Shawnette, because literally, like I said, the topic right now is about healing transitioning. Of course, we're focused more on the youth at the moment, but that statement that you're talking about, I mean, it can just branch out to any form. When you talk about the PTSDs and the traumas of slavery, and how that DNA is embedded, science found out, and it's funny because, I mean, you and I, Shauna, in the past have talked about reparations, and that's a whole topic within itself. That's a start for healing, and then some people say, no, it's not, and da 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 da. But I wanted to ask you, do you feel, because we know there's many ways of healing, but do you feel that an individual should just kind of like get a pen and paper and just start writing out, like, okay, this is what's wrong. Boom, I got this thing going on. I got this. You think it should be something that they're able to just jot it down and work one step? Because it's kind of like, me and my mama have this conversation a lot of times. You got so many things happening. Plus you got work. Maybe you're married and not married. Just got a divorce. Who knows what's happening? Now I got to work on some other shit. Like, oh my God. I'm tired,
Mm-hmm.
So how do you prioritize which one is better? Because of course you don't want to be a good example for your kids, but then at the same time you're trying to build a relationship that's better for your mom and you,
Mm-hmm.
and then you got daddy issues because he left you. All these things are happening. Which one do you prioritize?
Well, what we do is we do what we can to save our lives, right? So we talk about, and I heard you say this before, Kia, about self-preservation.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in order to do that, how do we save ourselves? We need to be safe. We need to be secure. And I believe your previous guest, Mr. Charles Haskins, he said that in order to have that security, we've got to have self love. And then he went on to say, in order to have self love, you've got to be able to know who you are, who
Right.
is self, and be able to uh, have accomplished your identity. Who am I? And as a part of that, now we're saying that you've got to be aware of who you are, you've got to love yourself, and then you've got to make a choice that I need to be safe. Now, you spoke about Ty, you spoke about individuals who have low self-esteem. These are
Right.
people who do not value or maybe have self-love. They don't have the value for themselves or a low self-concept, and perhaps haven't identified who they are, right, and what their
Right.
worth is. And so how do you even start to speak to someone about healing when they're not even comfortable with admitting that they're hurt?
Mm,
How many men that have been in the prison system are able to come home from prison and admit that they have been victims of a sexual assault
Wow.
in
not
prison?
not many, and we know that 1 out of 3, no, 1 out of 4 males by the age of, I believe, 16 would be a victim of sexual violence.
Wow.
So is there somewhere where a man could come out of prison having been a victim of sexual assault and express that this is the experience I've had, to do that safely? See, because we're talking about security. Is there a
Right.
place where he can safely do that while working on decreasing chances of recidivism, while working on trying to secure housing and
Wow.
employment, while working on rejoining society and being a member of the community who's able to add value to the community and adding value to his family, and while working on himself in such a way that he's able to address if there's any past abuses or if there's any current abuses going on in his life. What happens when you've changed and everybody around you is the same?
That is so hard. Can I say this to add to just to jump in for a second? It's something as simple as if a person said, I want to stop smoking cigarettes. I know it's not good for me. I'm trying to walk up the steps and I can't. And but everybody that is smoking, and you're like, well,
Hmm.
wait a second, and you're hoping that somebody will jump on your bandwagon and help you out. But as soon as something good did it, they lighten up. They lighten up, and it's interesting because I have noticed for my own personal growth that you will end up putting yourself first. You will start doing things. You won't shame yourself. You start contemplating, meditating, doing all the things that for personal development. And you find out that the people that you're rocking with, you're like, well, wait a second. Well, was I hanging out with you? Because what you ain't you ain't what and you have to kind of, and it's hard too, because for me personally, what I always find the hardest through the transitioning period is, okay, you and Sandra used to kick it, whatever the case may be. Okay, I'm moving on, I'm growing, you're not on this train. But then all of a sudden, you have family that can be so toxic and so detrimental to your own growth. And it's like, well, how do you get rid of Auntie Lou or,
Right.
Sister Sarah or Mama Jones? These are your actual, family that have raised you. And even if you're growing, they're like, oh, ain't nothing changed. You still the same lying so and so. And you're like, I ain't stole nothing since 1999. Like, oh, geez, and it's like, how do you still have a relationship with those people, but then at the same time become a better individual without them kind of dragging you down?
This happens clearer when you've set clear boundaries.
Boom.
So you are, like you said, you are working towards being a better you and being a healthier you. And so in doing that, that means that you've decided to only engage in relationships that are healthy for you.
Hmm.
And if you've got family or friends whose behavior is in some way harmful to you, then you can, with love and with the truth and honoring your relationship, say to them, I've begun to make better decisions for myself, those that are more healthy. And doing this, XYZ, is something I no longer deem healthy for me. I'm not going to do that anymore. And I know that this is what you do on Friday at 5 o'clock. And so I'm choosing not to join you on Friday at 5 o'clock. If you choose that you still want to foster a relationship, then say, can we meet up at Saturday at 2 o'clock and do this other activity? But I'm no longer doing that. And so when you're secure in the changes that you're making for yourself, you can do that. You can make those changes knowing that there is a real risk of loss. What am I talking about? What might you lose? You might lose some friends.
Right.
If you stop smoking, you're going to lose your smoking buddies.
Right. Right.
Break time, guess what? They're going to smoke and you're going to do something else. But
True.
what's wonderful is maybe you're going to go take a walk, and there are other people who walk instead of smoke on their break,
Right.
right? So you'll find yourself still able to interact with people who are more like you, like-minded. Just as you had your smoking friends, you'll have
Mhm.
your other friends. But you do have to acknowledge and recognize that there is loss. Sometimes we tell people, "Oh, you should just do this," or "You should just do that." All you got to do is this or that. We don't really recognize what the people have to lose. What do you stand to lose when you transition? What happens when you find religion and all of a sudden you want to go to church and your friends were hellions maybe, and how do you separate and decide that this is the walk I'm going to walk? Or what happens when you've been in a relationship having a good time and now somebody in that relationship decides they want to be celibate? How
Right.
how do you change in the middle of doing what you was already doing?
Mhm. Mhm.
Right? The answer that I have is this: being clear about what it is that you want and you setting those personal boundaries. See, this is how far I will go, this is how much I will do, this is how much I'm willing to change.
And see, Shawnette, you're I have to be honest, like you're better than me because I don't, all the transitions I see you stay, all the transitions I've been through. And for the folks who know me, I am an extremely spiritual person. Um, so I feel like this. Here's the way I think. When I'm going through my transition, my energy is so powerful that the folks that no longer serve the purpose of what we were supposed to do together, my energy pushes you out.
Ah,
So for me, it's not, I'm telling you, but this is the way, again, this is me personally, just it's the way I am. Um, I don't take it as a loss. It's not going to be a loss if they're supposed to be in your life to contribute in a positive way.
mhm, mhm.
And all the people that stepped out or I've turned my back to, I didn't lose anything. I gained happiness. I gained self-worth. I gained self-care. I gained time. I gained me. I didn't lose anything.
You know, it's interesting that you say that because I had an incident one time occur where it was my transitioning point, and our cousin, um, no names, mentioned to me, and I said I had to get it tatted on me because it meant so much, And everybody can kind of say something, but that one person say it, and you're like, wow, and it clicked. But this individual was like, level the fuck up, level up. They said that they were sitting and observing me. And then I'm like, okay, what were you observing? They said, I see that you got two sides. You have this one side that's, trying to go about your business, trying to manifest things, trying to just be that individual. And then you have another side who's kind of like, eh. And well, you know what? If I can't, if my people ain't riding with me, then we ain't riding. We're gonna just sit back and just, oh well, what I'm saying? Like, you
Right.
broke, we broke too. And it got to be a thing, and I'm observing my own self. I had to step out what I was doing, like, wait a second. I do got some toxic things happening here. How can I set an example for my kids? That was my main thing. My motivation were my children. And everybody who knows me knows I have testimonials out the yin yang, and I've never been the individual to shun from them just because I think that could be help somebody else.
Right.
But with that being said, I wanted what I remember getting out of an abusive relationship, I remember looking at my daughter, my middle child, and saying I had to set the example for her, that this is how a young lady is supposed to be treated, how she's supposed to act, and go from there. And with that being said, as the years go by, I'm still kind of straddling the fence. I'm getting older and older and older. And this one individual, you got to level up. You know, I know there's a song, I think Sierra came out with a song, but it's so interesting because that statement right there and getting out of myself and just doing that check and balance of my life. I can make big moves if I got you on the end and you pulling me down and you're trying to do, some other stuff, so definitely you have to be able to. Liz Carter here says, take inventory in my life.
Yes, it's true. Definitely take an inventory. Like, again, me personally, this is just me. I'm still learning to hold myself accountable. That person didn't drag me down. I put myself in the position to be dragged down. I can't be mad at a crackhead if I left crack out on my table and you didn't smoke the whole 8-ball. I'm not mad at you. I have to take accountability for the simple fact that I knew who you were and I left it out. So that's where I'm at. Not again, pointing the fingers, but looking at myself and, like Liz said, doing that personal inventory, what you did of owning your role that you played in whatever situations, whatever relationship. I'm sorry about the abuse. That's heartbreaking. That's really heartbreaking. I'm glad you got out of it. The role you played was you had been a victim and you might have been having trouble leaving because you were getting your A beat. That's the role you played. The role you also played was you got out of it, and look at you now. Right?
I also want to say that there are individuals who simply do not know what to do. And I want those individuals to know that that is okay. It is okay to say to your child, I don't even know what to say about this subject. I am glad that we're able to have this conversation, but I don't even know what to say. It's okay to say, I don't know. It's okay to say, I don't like the way things are going in my life, but I don't know how to change or what to change. It's okay to say that. I think all of us need to have a place where it's safe for us to say, I don't know. I need help. I can't. Is it
Yes.
okay for us to not be strong all the time? Is it okay for us to not be able to handle it and bounce back and to keep it moving and to keep it pushing? I think that that is important until we can admit, acknowledge, be aware of the fact that there is an injury, then we are not able to begin the healing.
I love you, Shawnette, so
I
much.
love you.
Go ahead.
Wait, it's 8:53. I'm not trying to do any type of stop, but I do want to acknowledge that Kia's birthday is on is on the 17th, right?
Yes.
17th. All right. So Kia's birthday, June 17th.
I'm turning 19, guys.
Sorry, that was like way off, but my mind, I'm all over the place.
It's okay. No. I mean, so back to what you was saying, Shawnette. It's interesting that last little part that you said. As soon as you were saying that little piece, I was thinking about, wow, the atonement that America has to do when it comes to acknowledging the role that they're still playing in white supremacy. That's what came to mind when you said that. As an individual, it's easy. We could pick up books and this is what I read. Yeah, we can have these socials. We can have a podcast talk about it. We can have a kumbaya session. But in reality, when you have the masses that suffer, the masses that go through inequalities, from African Americans to the LGBT community, since, we're talking about Pride Month, just whatever topic we're talking about. Wow, how do we atone as a country? And that can't even be answered, in the next couple of minutes. But it's like, wow.
Absolutely cannot be answered in a couple minutes. But I do want to say this, and I just want, I'm not going to answer this, but I just want to leave this out there for thought. Do we ask those who oppress? Do we ask the abuser to heal us?
No, I'm not asking them for. I think.
See, now, wait. You're giving me an answer, and I love it. I love
I'm
it,
sorry.
right? But what I want us to do is really think about that, because I think that we've been positioning ourselves as a people to say they should do this and they need to do that and they owe us this. And we are asking the person, let's say if there is a physical abuser, we're asking them to acknowledge that what they're doing is wrong and to stop doing it.
Thank you.
We're saying, stop punching me, stop hitting me. And maybe we notice that we continue to get punched, we continue to get hit. And so, what you commended Kia for is that you weren't going to stay and continue to get hit. You weren't going to allow the punch. So, maybe sometimes the person who's doing the abuse will not stop. Maybe they have not stopped. Maybe the person that you're looking for an apology for, or you're looking for some resolution to happen with, maybe they're not sorry. Maybe
Right.
you're waiting to forgive them, and maybe they're continuing to do the behavior that hurt you in the first place.
Right.
And so, are we giving that person the power to hold our healing?
Mm. Mm. See.
So here's the kicker. You and I'm putting you on blast on that. You're gonna have to promise me, if it's not July, maybe August, but one day you come as our special guest. And I promised a couple of people I would have the conversation. We've had it in the past, but definitely talking about reparations, because we talked about, we are going to allow somebody to help our healing and these type of things, but that falls into it. Like, hey, do you owe us something? Or no, you could keep it. We're going to keep on doing our thing. But I definitely, like I said, we've had the conversation in the past, and it lasts forever. But there's so many people that I know who have asked me on the little text messages or something like that, or personally, please, let's have that conversation. So I'm asking you, sometime in the future, one day, if you ever feel like coming back to our little podcast, if you would bless us with your knowledge on that.
I would love to. I'd be honored. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any last words from you, Shawnette?
Well, I really hate to have any last words, but let me leave you with this. It is time to start the healing. A lot of people are trying to figure out what to do with the hurt. The first thing to do with the hurt is to admit that you're hurt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Did she go? Oh, okay.
No, she's still there.
See, that's called the drop mic. That's called the dropped mic. That's just dropping the mic time.
I can't stand
That's just dropping the mic time. I
was like,
no, that's really what I wanted to leave with. Okay. That's just really it, though. You have to acknowledge that you're hurt. Yeah. Tell somebody that. Don't just say that to yourself. I'm hurt, but I'm gonna be all right. Tell somebody I'm hurt. Tell somebody I'm scared. Tell somebody I feel broken. Tell somebody I'm lonely. Tell somebody I need you. That's the first part of it. And then we got some more work to do.
Yeah. Identifying, like you said, that there is an issue, that you were hurt, that you are broken, and then being able to articulate it. Because again, like you said, we don't always know how to express it. I know I didn't for years, and I'm still learning. However, whoever is on here watching, live or you watch it afterwards, I can most definitely tell you, I don't care what it is. And again, if you knew people who knew me, if you need any type of help, I may not be able to give you money. I may not be able to ride out to you, but I have an ear. And what I cannot help you with, I most likely will have a resource to direct you to. Please, if you feel alone, if you're scared, if you need someone to talk to, reach out. You have Mothers Unfiltered. You can reach out to me on my Facebook page, which I'm also streaming from. So I just wanted to put that out there for the listeners as well.
And just to kind of wrap it up and to piggyback off of what you said, I think all three of us, definitely have that ear. And we use our voice the best way that we can. For people that personally know me, I love to talk. I have stories for days, but those stories are to be able to bring light and to share light on what's really going on. A lot of people kind of, not even per se shame, but kind of keep things to themselves.
Right.
And we had somebody to say, oh, that's exactly what I felt. But at the end of the day, I wanted to make this podcast so that it's like, you know what, this is what I was feeling. This is what's going on. I want to also put out there for anybody who's listening, if you guys have any topics that you want us to talk about, some things that kind of came to mind was colorism, was next week is going to be Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day.
That is going to be such a great episode because, we have so many wonderful fathers that step into the role of being that stepdad, that hero to a lot of people who don't have dads, So that's definitely, we're going to be talking about that. But there's a lot of different things that we definitely want to touch base. Go ahead, Ty, before we let you go.
Just one more. I don't know, freely commenting. They strongly believe what Charles said about starting protective measures for self and family and community, even as we go through the healing. So, yes.
Mm-hmm. But thank you guys. I love you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Shawnette. Thank you, Kia. Looking good, beautiful. Get it.
Love you.
Love you guys.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you guys for listening.
All right. Here we go.